It's UPBOptionMillionaires.com on this Sunday, September 13th, 2015. You want to look at this long-term trend line that I've been talking about for many years. I got on the bull train. Folks, I was bearish back in 2008. What a move we had to the downside, and I've talked about this for a while. We get confirmation of a move to the downside, and it does indeed come down to support that we saw back in 2008 and 2009. We're going to have a lot of money to be made to the downside. And you know what? Let's wait for that confirmation. Are we going to get some sort of a head and shoulders pattern here? Could this be a left shoulder, this ahead, and we got a right shoulder here that elongates to the end of 2015? It is possible. So don't tempt fate here. We saw it all throughout the week last week. S&P 500 futures look so vulnerable. Some sort of a topping pattern here. But guess what? Late in the session on Friday, just rallied. Hey, stocks look great, huh? But if you look earlier in the session, we pulled back. So if you want to look throughout the whole week, we had some sort of a topping pattern here that I think is going to lead to long-term lower prices. Also, you look, I've been bringing this up quite frequently on Twitter, this wonderful wedge. Okay, this is the wedge of boom or doom, as I like to call it. Draw a trend line all the way across. Broke out of it briefly earlier in the week, came down with a massive decline to the downside. But if you draw a trend line, come all the way across on either time frame here, we are right in the middle, okay? We are stuck in the middle, as YouTube would say, and we can't get out of it. But if you look from a long-term price perspective, I do think, and if you look from what has happened over the last couple weeks, the trend is to the downside. See this? See these red candles here? These red candles imply downside. And this downside, amid this wedge, is going to see a continuation of this said pattern here that's going to bring us down to the Monday crash lows that we saw a couple weeks ago, and possibly below that. Actually, that's the Ebola lows. The Monday lows are back here. And if you look, possible head and shoulders topping pattern. So let me get off the soapbox or the sandbox, as we call it here at OptionMillionaires.com. Let's look at some individual names here. The S&P 500 here from a short-term perspective. But let's look at Apple. Apple's the most popular stock. Biggest company in the world by market cap, and I'm telling you what, looks pretty weak here. We had the gap down, but if you look, just take this gap down, very bearish here. That looks like a bear flag to me. Heading to the downside, Disney. Seems the more they raise their prices, the worse the company is doing here over the short term. Look at this breakdown we saw off its record highs, off the earnings report. We had a bounce. Take this out, very bearish bear flag here. You can draw the flag. Looks very bearish to the downside for Disney. You know, folks, so short-term memory oriented here. You look back to the financial crisis. This was a $15, $20 stock back here. We're up here. And this is what I continually try to tell everyone here at OptionMillionaires.com. You're at $100. There's a lot more downside to go. Oh! You know, Tarzan. Just picture that. Tarzan and Jerry's like, oh! We have a lot more downside to go. You want to draw a trend line across from 2009? Support is at 50. So there you go, folks. Disney's one of the few stocks here that trade for downside, or few of the many. I'll let you know in the chat room at OptionMillionaires.com. A couple more here. Actually, for upside, Joy. Its CEO and executive, who knows what's going on here. We had an insider buy here at the lows. Support's right at this level. Looks like an interesting buy here. To go long, FCX. Carl Icahn took a stake. He's talking about this head and shoulders pattern. Did not come to fruition. We had a bounce before finally succumbing to the inevitable weakness. Carl Icahn says, hey, let me take a stake here. Of course, we're going to get a bounce before it heads to zero. Hopefully, Carl Icahn gets out before the S hits the fan. Boeing finally broke down the support here. Something to watch. UPB, OptionMillionaires.com. I'll see you in the chat room. Everyone have a great rest of the weekend. Goodbye.